Two cool bros tooting each other's horns.
We the best!
A team that has a lot to prove, but not nearly as much on the line, in my opinion, the Minnesota Timberwolves. They have been going through a rebuilding process, I would say, in the last decade or so. And I think the big question for them as a team is, have they finally gotten a core together that is worth keeping, right? They went through the Kevin Love years where they had one guy who was a beast and they could never figure out what to put around him. They went through the whole Andrew Wiggins era and they tried to put Jimmy Butler around him, and then they got Cat, and that didn't work out, right? Yeah. So they blew that up and they kept Cat, but now they have D'Lo and now they have Ant. So it's kind of like, have they finally found a young core worth building around? The team looks primed to make a surprising playoff run, but we found out just tonight that they lost in Game 6, which was a tough. But they played Memphis tough in the first round.
Oh, yeah.
But it is kind of weird because I feel like Minnesota is still a team that, like, they feel oddly off schedule, like, for their core's age. Right? They still feel like they're a step behind where they could be or where they should be if they really wanted to contend consistently, right? And I think Ant is already making waves, and he will likely continue his ascent no matter what happened to this postseason. But what I saw too in this postseason, and I didn't know quite what to make of it, so I wanted to ask you this question: what do you make of what I deemed their undeserved swagger?
Yeah. It is interesting to see a team like that who, like you're saying, it's undeserved. And is that just immaturity? Is that kind of a mental weakness? I mean, I think you can also look at them blowing all these leads and you wonder, is that immaturity? Is that mental weakness? So I think maybe they're the kind of team that gets too full of themselves or too ahead of themselves and they don't play under control. It's kind of like the opposite of the Suns.
Yeah.
Where the Suns are just steady. Like, they run the same, they just run their offense up 20, down 20, doesn't matter. Whereas you see with Minnesota, these wild runs. I mean, they blew massive leads. I want to say, 26-point lead in Game 3.
Two of them. They were up 25 twice, and they blew it twice.
Then they even the series go 2-2, and then they blow an 11-point lead in Game 5 with 7 minutes to go. And then tonight, up 12 in the third.
They were up 10. They were up 10 going into the fourth. They were up double digits going into the fourth tonight, and they lost.
So that's, you have 3 games where they were in control.
Yeah.
I mean, they were, if you looked at win probability, you're probably talking 90+%. On that 26-point lead, you're definitely talking like 98%.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
So you're looking at a team that won 2 games and had 3 essentially won and lost in 6.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's a huge concern. It's kind of this idea you're saying, like, do they have the core they can build around? And to me, I would say no. I mean, they have great pieces, but you can't be blowing 3 huge leads like that.
What do you think they need?
Well, one big thing would be if Cat could be more consistent. I think that was a big issue in general. Like, I think if Cat was more consistent, that doesn't necessarily stop you from blowing the lead, but he absolutely disappeared in a few games this series. I mean, he had, 15 points in Game 2, 8 points in Game 3.
Ooh,
he took 7 shots in Game 2. He took 4 shots in Game 3.
That really?
4 shots.
That's crazy. I did not realize he disappeared that much. Wow.
His Game 3 line was 8 points, 5 boards, 1 assist. He did have 5 blocks. That's great. But 4 turnovers. He just disappeared in those games. And
well, okay. Can I ask you something since you're looking at it right now? I don't have it pulled up. What were his personal fouls? Because to me, again, I wasn't super in tune with those games every single night. Or all those games, but it seemed to me whenever I was watching that he was getting like silly fouls. Like he took some really silly fouls and got himself into foul trouble.
He had 5 fouls in Game 2. He was only able to play 28 minutes in Game 2, which was a blowout. He had 5 fouls in Game 3, still played 33 minutes, so to me, that's not an excuse to only take 4 shots.
Oh, yeah, definitely not. Oh, my gosh, no.
Well, in that game 3, he only got to the line 2 times. I mean, it's just...
So 1 bucket. He got fouled 1 time.
That's just brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal. So, the fouls were an issue, though. And then he had 5 fouls in game 5 also. So he did keep getting himself into foul trouble. Committing the kind of fouls that you would not see Ayton commit.
No,
Kinda
and like silly
foolish
offensive fouls. That's what I saw.
Yeah.
Silly offensive fouls where it's like he's obviously hooking a guy and then complains to the ref when it's like, dude, like you're huge and that was an obvious hook.
Right. Everyone saw it. It's
Yeah.
clearly a foul.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think for as good a season they had, I think it's got to be a real bitter taste in their mouth to end the season like they did. I think this feels worse than a normal round 1 loss. So they hadn't been there. I think they last made it 4 years ago. But to me, like, they're just going into offseason. They have to be kicking themselves to have blown those 3 leads.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like, it feels like they had all the pieces and all the talent.
They matched
But
up
just
really
really,
well with
they
the
weren't
Grizzlies.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, who have been incredibly hot. It's like, Grizzlies were playing great. Minnesota looked every bit their equal. And they really, I mean, I feel like they have to blame themselves. So that's got to be a bitter feeling for what is still an exciting young team. And it was a great season. They got to be happy overall, but oof.
Yeah. And I think maybe that's a reason for optimism going into next season. Is being like, look, we had the leads. We just got to learn how to finish. So they might continue to build on that core, understanding, like, we almost upset the number 2 seed. Like, we were ahead in all those games, and we should have won those games. So it might be a reason for optimism and confidence for them moving forward.
I don't like to toot my own horn, but cut that.